What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gooner channel. And Premier League football returns at long last after a really depressing and frustrating hiatus for meaningless international friendlies. And there's a pretty full schedule tomorrow with some exciting games in there. But let's be honest, everybody is really looking forward to Sunday's games between Liverpool at 2 o'clock against Brighton and Manchester City hosting Arsenal at the Etihad at 4:30. Now, this is, of course, going to be one of the big games of the season, and if Arsenal win it, could start a new era. If we go on to win the Premier League, this will definitely be one of the key contributing games. But is it a must-win game for Arsenal? That's the question in this video. And the secondary question is this actually a must-win game for Manchester City? Now, the first thing I want to say about this trip to the Etihad is that it does feel different. For the first time since Pep Guardiola took over at Manchester City, I am going into this game with just a little bit of confidence. Now, it might be misplaced and it might just be me getting my hopes up again, but I think that's important to do that as a fan. There's no point spending your life miserably expecting to lose and being pleasantly surprised when you don't. I'm going to go the other way. But I think my confidence is more about the fact that things seem different this season. Last season, as we all know, out of nowhere and quite unexpectedly, we challenged for the title. And at this point in the season, we were, of course, 8 points clear of Manchester City. And, well, we threw it away. We know we did. We seemed to run out of pace at exactly the worst time. And when we went to the Etihad, we were missing a key player in Saliba, had to replace him with Holding. But it wasn't just that. It was also the fact that there was a tiredness that had set into some of the players, and also a lack of confidence seemed to be showing itself. All that pressure of being top for as long got to the young players who were totally inexperienced, and, well, we just didn't give a good account of ourselves.
If you're enjoying this video but you are not planning to click like and subscribe to the Gooner channel, then that's fundamentally not okay.
But this season, we seem to have found our form nearer the end of the season. We've had our little mini wobble in December, but since coming back from Dubai, we've won 8 straight Premier League games. And they haven't all been against pushover sides. But we've done it in a really convincing way. We have the meanest defence in the league, the best goal-scoring record in the league. We have goals coming from all over the place. We have David Raya looking more and more like the perfect choice for goalkeeper when so many people doubted it was a good decision to bring him in or to drop Ramsdale. We have Kai Havertz, scored a goal in each of his last 4 Premier League games and scored for Germany. Now starting to look like the player he did at Leverkusen and made Chelsea go out and splash the cash on him. We look like we're getting all of our players back, and instead of going into this match with serious injuries, there are 1 or 2 problems that, Gabriel may be out because of an inflamed Achilles. Bukayo Saka, who was dropped by the England team precautionarily, but he may be out. And Martinelli, who seems to be nursing a foot injury that just won't heal. We do have the return of players like Jesus, Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, Thomas Partey. Jurriën Timber's getting ever closer to fitness. So we could be going into the business end of the season, unlike last time, with more confidence, more swagger, better in front of goal, and a deeper squad to choose from. Now, of course, look, all of that said, if you're a Manchester City fan, of course you're confident going into this game on Sunday. After all, the last 6 years, when your team has needed to, they have won. And the narrative around Manchester City is that they pace themselves really well to come good at exactly this time of the season. And so many times when they've been behind, as they were last season, as they were in 12 and 13 against Manchester United, as they were against Manchester United over 10 years ago, consistently in that period when they've won titles, they've done it by coming back from worse situations than they're in now. And Manchester City have been grinding out results. They've won 4 of their last 6 games, drawn 2. They haven't lost a game at the Etihad in 38 games. And Rodri, who will almost certainly start on Sunday, hasn't lost a game he's played in over a year. But one of the reasons this feels different is because they haven't looked like they're clicking. They haven't gelled yet. The reality is that all good runs come to an end. In 1989, when Arsenal went to Liverpool, Liverpool were the dominant side of the 80s in this country. Going away and having to win 2-0 at Anfield, it was inconceivable that it could happen, and yet it did. And although Liverpool came back and won the league the next season after that, it effectively ended their dominance of English football. Now, Arsenal didn't really go on and capitalise on that. But again, in '98, when we travelled to Manchester United in the Old Trafford game where Mark Overmars scored, I did a video about this yesterday, but that goal that helped us beat Manchester United, despite the fact the bookies had actually paid out on them, well, it didn't quite end their dominance of English football. They went on to win the treble next season. Going into that game, we hadn't actually ever scored against Man United in the Premier League at Old Trafford. Things change. We went to Man City last season and we got spanked 4-1, and who knows, maybe it'll happen again. I think one of the reasons I am quietly confident, although not that quietly because obviously I'm doing a video about it, but the reason I am more confident than I've been is because I've been watching Manchester City. Going back the last 6 games in the Premier League, they did beat Everton 2-0 at home, but they left it very late, and it was 2 goals by Haaland almost against the run of the play at that point. They then drew 1-1 with Chelsea in a game where if Pochettino hadn't gone so defensive so early, there was a chance Chelsea could have beaten them. And Chelsea are not a side that should be going to the Etihad and getting a draw. Next, they struggled to beat Brentford 1-0 at home. Haaland scoring after it had kind of looked like Brentford might pull off a result there. And again, this is not a Brentford side that's on the top of their game. The next game was a 1-0 defeat of Bournemouth away, where Foden scored in the 24th minute, but they couldn't add to that. And then there was a game at home to Manchester United. This is not a Manchester United side that should be getting a result at the Etihad, and they didn't. But after Rashford had put them ahead, it was heavy work for Manchester City. The difference was 2 world-class goals from Foden and a goal at the end from Haaland. Made the scoreline look a lot more comfortable than it really was. And then, of course, the game against Liverpool, taking the lead in the first half, looking far the superior side, but by the end hanging on against the Liverpool who have endured injuries and are not at top of their game either. So why shouldn't we expect to get at least a draw out of the game against City? And to the question, is this a must-win game for Arsenal? All right, let's assume that Liverpool beat Brighton. And as long as they don't beat them 7-0, they'll be 3 points ahead of us as we go into the game against Manchester City. So, of course, if we only get a point, then we come off the top spot with 2 points behind Liverpool. And Man City fans will tell you over and over again, they don't really fear Arsenal, they fear Liverpool. And they tell you that because Liverpool have done it before. But the midfield that lines up against Brighton will likely be McAllister, Endo and Szoboszlai. And they've not won the Premier League. Up front, they have players who have never won the Premier League, and Mo Salah is not getting any younger. Of course, he's still fantastic and he can win games on his own, but they're increasingly relying on him. And their last game against Manchester United would have taken some of the wind out of their sails. In truth, I think Liverpool have done fantastically well. As we know, Klopp is leaving, and his ability to motivate players is unquestioned. Maybe that will get them over the line in the Premier League this season. But what if Liverpool only get a draw? What if they lose, somehow conspire to lose against the Brighton side who've shown only in glimpses this season what they showed us last season and have their own terrible injury list to put up with? Let's assume that Liverpool beat Brighton. Does it mean it's a must-win game for Arsenal? Well, look, I think honestly, if we go to the Etihad and lose, yes, we'll endure a little bit of the comments about being bottlers, but we'll still have 9 games to put it right. People say that if we are going to be considered title winners, we have to go to the Etihad and win. But Manchester City haven't been going to Anfield and winning in any of the seasons where they're title winners. It's not necessarily true that you have to go and win these games. Mourinho said it. He said you win your home games, you enjoy your away games. And that's certainly true. Now, if we don't win the game against Manchester City, but it's a draw, that could be good enough for us. Then it's Manchester City that have to answer the questions. Because I honestly think they can start to feel our breath on their backs. They know they can't stay on top of the mountain forever. It's really hard to win, but it's harder still to stay up there when you are. Every day you put a bucket down the well to draw water, one day it comes up dry. Every prize fighter at the top of their game one day gets knocked out. Now, I'm not sure that us beating Manchester City at the Etihad would do that. But I do know that their failing to beat us would just add more question marks to what is not a side that's clicking. I watched the Man City channel earlier where he was talking about it's not just Haaland you have to fear. Well, in the 6 games I've just listed, they scored 8 goals. 4 of them came from Erling Haaland, and he hasn't scored in 4. He doesn't look that good. Now, I'm tempting fate, aren't I? Because it'll be just typical. Players of his quality, and he has undeniably got goal-scoring quality. But is it going wrong for him because he can't now rely on the service from Ilkay Gundogan, Riyad Mahrez? Kevin De Bruyne's injuries have meant he hasn't been as prolific this season, either in assists or in goals. But of course, I'd rather he wasn't playing, because if there is one player that Arsenal fans should fear, it's Kevin De Bruyne. He has something like 8 goals and 5 assists against us. I think I'm right in saying that we're the team that he scored most goals against. But I think if Manchester City don't win this game, that's 3 draws in their last 7 games. If you extrapolated that over the last 9, and I'm not saying that that's something you should do, but I'm saying it's not inconceivable. They have some tricky fixtures coming up as well. Arguably, Arsenal have the hardest run-in. But the reality here is either Manchester City are doing what they always do and preparing to come good at the right time with the title run in the business end of the season, or they're not just quite as good as they were last season when they won the treble. And Liverpool and Arsenal have improved. For me, that win against Manchester City at home, even though it was a very late goal and City fans will tell you it was a scrappy deflected goal, but they barely had a shot. I think they had 1 shot on target in that game. They will tell you that the Community Shield doesn't mean anything and we left it really late to equalise and only managed to beat them on penalties. But what we have demonstrated is that the players who let their nerves get to them last season, the players who've grown up a little this season, are far better at getting their business done. In the end, we'll have to do our talking on the pitch. We either go to the Etihad and get 3 points, or we get a draw, which I think does neither of us any favours, but is not ruinous to our title hopes, really. Or we lose. And if we lose, it will be just as everybody expected. And all it will really show us is we're not quite there yet. Maybe we're still a couple of players short. But we have never been as close as we are now. And there is a confidence amongst the fan base. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear your messages. I want to know how you feel about this game going into it. And above everything else, it's just 2 more sleeps until we get to find out if we have turned a corner, if we are serious title challengers, if we can go away to one of the best teams in European football and get a result of any kind. So, in summation, I don't think it's a must-win game for Arsenal. After all, the bookies and the pundits and the City fans and most fans of other teams don't expect us to get anything out of this. They're looking forward to calling us bottlers again. They're looking forward to saying, look out, when it really counts, Arsenal don't turn up. And I'm just excited that we're still in a title race. And whatever happens in this game, we will still be in a title race after Easter. And if we can go away to Old Trafford and win, if we can go away to Tottenham and win, if we can win all the other games, then I still think we'll win the league. And I think out of all the teams, out of the 3 teams still in this title race, our celebrations will definitely be the best. After all, no one over-celebrates like Arsenal fans. I hope we're doing it on Sunday night. There'll be a live stream after the match to discuss what's happened, hopefully to celebrate. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this. Thank you so much for watching this far. And until I see you again, be lucky. Lots of love.